So at BSD, we're kicking off a series of webinars. This is the first one in a series of many that we think will be beneficial and helpful to educators who are, teaching online or doing digital content creation and preparing students with digital skills, project-based learning, lots of engaging and interesting content for teachers. So BSD, if you don't know already, stands for Build Something Different. And we're an education technology company, and we provide technology solutions and curriculum for schools all over the world. So this webinar is only 45 minutes or so, so we wanted to kind of make it as impactful as possible for you. I'll share just a tiny bit about BSD, but then the meat of the webinar today is about preparing students and preparing teachers for creating digital content. And for me, that always means that we have to have a pedagogical foundation. So I'll share with you a bit about our approach and how we do that, and how you can set on your own journey of defining and articulating your pedagogical foundation. We'll talk about some ways to design for flexibility, especially in online learning environments. Lastly, I'll show you some examples at BSD about how we put our pedagogical foundation and our flexibility into action with our own content. And then we'll share and have a bit of time for Q&A. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Mark. I am a PhD student at Chiang Mai University here in Thailand, where I'm studying computer engineering and in the field of education, specifically around AI and computer science. At BSD, I oversee curriculum development, pedagogy, professional development, and I help to articulate and align all of our curriculum practices with this pedagogical foundation that I'm going to share with you today, so that all of our content is cohesive and it follows a model that's easy to replicate in the classroom. So at BSD, just to kind of give you an overview of some of the things that we do, we teach students in these three core areas: hard skills, soft skills, and then values. The hard skills that we teach are coding and programming with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, data analysis, content creation for the web. Alongside that, we also teach soft skills, because all of our projects are built around this project-based learning model where students can work together, which means they have to communicate, collaborate, and have critical thinking. And then lastly, because of our pedagogical foundation, we believe in the values of curiosity, adaptability, resilience, and empathy, which we weave in throughout all of our projects. So it's because of this foundation that we have defined for ourselves that we're able to create digital content that matches what our values are and what our commitments are. And we use this as a lens to create everything that we do going forward. So let's talk a little bit about a pedagogical foundation. Maybe you learned about different pedagogical philosophies in your teacher training courses, or if you've done master's degrees or anything. There's always a bit of child psychology going back to Piaget. There's all of these great strong foundations that we can lean on. And so today I'll talk about what we do at BSD and how you can set on your own adventure of discovering a pedagogical foundation that works for you. At BSD, we lean heavily on the pedagogical foundation of Constructionism. And if you're not familiar with Constructionism, it's kind of a branch of learning and teaching that's about designing and building artifacts. And those artifacts can be digital artifacts or physical artifacts. The image you see on the left is the founder of the term Constructionism. His name is Seymour Papert, and he's most famous for his work at MIT, where he developed the first ever programming language for children called Logo, which then later became the foundation for Lego Mindstorms. But the idea of Constructionism has flourished beyond just Lego and Mindstorms, but it's gone on to inspire project-based learning, maker spaces in education, design thinking. So there's a whole field of study that kind of started with this idea of Constructionism. So at BSD, we rely heavily on this idea. And so in the field of Constructionism, what's happening when students design or build something is that they're actually making two versions of that. One is the physical version or the digital version. Let's say they're making a blog post, or maybe they're building something, a model of some kind. But the other version that they're building is a mental version of that same thing. And so an ideation process can start to happen when you change something in your mental model, you change it in the physical model, and vice versa. So this idea of constructionism is kind of a dual purpose. There's mental activities going on as well as physical activities going on, and it can be done, with any type of media, any type of physical thing. And so this is what all of our lessons and everything that we build and design at BSD starts off with this base level understanding that we want students to construct things in the world and construct things in their mind, and that those two things are interrelated. So when you dig into constructionism as a pedagogy, other designers and other theoreticians have developed purposeful technologies that are called now Constructionist Technologies. And there's a term that's kind of come about from this that's called hard fun, which means that we're doing difficult things, but we're enjoying the process along the way. So there are three areas for something to be considered a constructionist technology. One, it must be easy to get started, which we call low floors. Secondly, there must be room to go deeper, so there can kind of be like an infinite ability to do more complex things, which we call high ceilings. And then lastly, it needs to be designed for play in mind, which is the hard fun aspect. Now, when I say play, sometimes that kind of like sends off an alarm in people's heads about education. But we are firmly rooted and believe that play is a valuable instrument for education. And if we use it in such a way that it's designed in a purposeful way, where students can articulate themselves and students can show what they have learned in a playful environment, then we have found, just like many others in constructionism, that play is a massive catalyst for engaging students and getting them interested. So all of our content and all of our platform kind of has these three major parts: the low floors, high ceilings, and hard fun. It's part of our pedagogical foundation. So the reason why I'm sharing this all with you is not necessarily to make you also use constructionism as your pedagogical foundation, but what I really want to convey is that when you have a strong pedagogical foundation, that is going to be the lens at which you look through everything else that you build and design. It will be the foundation for what you create, and it will be the kind of the beacon of light for the reason for why you make things. And this is a really great way to start, because it gives you a sense of purpose, it gives you something to build upon. And if constructionism isn't a pedagogy that you want to build from, then you've got to define your own and research and find out what's going to work best for you. I've worked with schools in the past who have more of a Montessori approach, and they use that as their pedagogical foundation. We have other schools that are more interested in open access, equity, accessibility, open source things, and they have a different pedagogical foundation. So really, you've got to figure out what works best for you. I'm sharing what works best for us at BSD and what we found that our research conveys. So once we developed our pedagogical foundation at BSD, we went a few steps further to kind of decide and define our philosophy about learning, about our approach, and about the tools and the content that we will make for educators and for students. So here's kind of a bulleted list of our main goals in our philosophy. We believe that learning should be hands-on and experiential, meaning that students shouldn't be just receivers of information, but they should be experiencing it. We also believe that students learn best when immersed in a project. So all of our curriculum is project-based. We also think that students should understand the meaning and the purpose for why they are doing something. And some of the best ways to help them understand that is through connecting it to real world problems or real world scenarios. We also believe that at times students should be able to learn at their own pace. So especially in the world of digital skills and coding, we have some students who will just absolutely race through and finish all of the coding projects, while other students need a more scaffolded approach where they can take their time and learn the syntax. So our platform provides an opportunity for both of those things to happen. We also believe that help should always be within reach for students and for teachers. So at BSD, we have mechanisms built into our platform so that students can reach out to help for teachers. If teachers reach a place where they need help, they can reach out to our staff for direct help as well. And then lastly, we think that because of our current situation and mostly learning online, that good UI and UX allows for a great experience. So students need to be able to use our platform and use our products in an effective manner, in which is a great way for them to be engaged and not get lost in clunky buttons and weird navigation. So these are our core philosophies. And every time that we sit down to make a new product or make a new curriculum, we look at these philosophies and our pedagogical foundation and use that as a way to kind of weave together the content that we want to make. And this has been such a huge instrumental tool in the way that we approach our content creation and our digital curriculum. And I think it's a process that can really work for anyone. And like I said about our pedagogical foundation, you don't have to agree with our philosophy. You should make your own philosophy and use that as a tool to help you construct what's best for you. So how can I get started on this process? So maybe you yet haven't identified a pedagogical foundation, and you haven't written out a series of philosophical driving questions for yourself. So one way to start on that journey is to first ask yourself, what is it that I care most about? What are my values? And maybe this isn't just for you, but it could be a whole experiment for your team, your grade level, or your curricular area. If you are a head of a school, you can think about this from a whole school perspective. But first, you've got to define what are the values and what are the things that you want to contribute to in the world. Then how can we take those values and put them into a digital context? Because we're all here to learn about how to do digital content creation and online learning. So we have to think about unique ways where we can show our values in digital ways. And then lastly, what is the experience that you want students to have, and how can you design an experience that aligns to your values, that aligns to your pedagogical foundation, and is done in such a way that provides in opportunities for engagement, enrichment, and relationship building, which is also a huge important part of online learning. So if you want to learn a bit more about how we've approached this, we've developed a curriculum development process guide. So this is an actual book that we've developed that shows how everything that we've done comes from research-based practices in formative assessment. And we've also developed a logic model to show all of our values, all of our philosophies, and our foundation, and how that directly connects to our activities and our outputs. This process has actually been certified by an organization in the United States called Digital Promise. So we went through a certification process where they looked at our goals, our objectives, and our research, and how we mapped that to all of our curriculum. And it was considered just, and we got that certificate. So I'd like to share this document with all of you. So at the end of the presentation today, I'm going to drop a link to this document. It's a PDF, and I'll share that with all of you so you have that as a resource to help you kind of think about what are some ways that you can start on this journey based on what we've done as an example. All right, so the next topic I want to talk about is, when you're designing digital content and content for online, we need to think about how to make things flexible, because we're kind of in a world right now where everything's flexible. And we've got students at home, we've got students at school, we've got so many different scenarios and environments and times and schedules. So that means that we all need to have and exercise a little bit of flexibility. So I want to share with you how we can design some of that and bake it into our content delivery systems. So at BSD, all of our curriculum is designed in such a way that it can be taught virtual or face-to-face. So our teacher resources, our teacher guides, we have videos for instruction, but the main goal is to make high-quality content that can be used for either environment. And we even have opportunities for self-guided learning experiences so that a student could take a course with us without the intervention of a teacher. So it's important that we have these different modalities for learning because of the nature of the world that we're currently in right now. And most of that has transitioned to online learning. So I'm sure all of you have experienced a bit of this transition, and there maybe have been some ups and downs with that. But now we're just kind of faced with this situation where we have to design for flexibility. So let me talk about some things that flexibility should not be when we're talking about education and we're still holding students to a high rigor of assessment. We're holding them to a high rigor of meeting the standards that we have to teach. So flexibility doesn't mean making the work harder or easier, or making the assignments less, or reducing the time. It doesn't mean that you as a teacher have to design multiple lessons and different versions of those lessons and have to, spend a lot of time making all of these types of things. Flexibility is also not curve grading, which I've seen, in my own youth as students. It's also not reducing the knowledge level of the content or dumbing down the content, and it's certainly not just giving students busy work. So think about ways that we can avoid these types of flexibilities. And next, I'll show you some flexibility types that we want to kind of move towards. So flexibility, according to us, is designing lessons and activities that meet students where they are. So we've got students with different abilities, with different backgrounds, and who need different types of flexibility. But we also are going to do that in a way that's meaningful to them, and it's not just busy work, and it's not just a differentiation in such a way where we're giving students work that's that doesn't have any purpose to it. So flexibility is thinking about this from the perspective of the teacher. How can I meet the needs of my students wherever they are, with whatever they have, with whatever their ability is, and with whatever circumstance they happen to be in? I do a bit of online teaching myself, and I've got students in India, and they've got 3 or 4 students all gathered around one mobile device for their daily online learning. I've got students in Singapore where each student has a laptop, an iPad, and a mobile device. So I have to think about how can I have flexibility in the design of my courses to meet the needs of all of those learners. You may not have such wide varying ranges of flexibility needs, but it's certainly something we need to think about, the unique individual differences that our students have. So when we do think about flexibility, there's 3 main areas in which we can modify. First, we can modify the content. That's our curriculum. That's our lessons. Second, we can modify the process. And thirdly, the product and the deliverable. I'm gonna explain more about how to modify the process and the product deliverable, and less about the content, because the content's really up to you as the teacher. You're the professional in your subject area. You have to make the choices about how to modify content and stay within the rigor of the standard. But I want to show you some cool ways where we can adjust the process and the product deliverables so that students have some creativity and some voice and choice about what they are learning and ways to show what they're learning. So the way I want to approach this is that let's first think about a food menu. Let's say that you're going to go to a restaurant and you're going to order food. It's dinner time. You've worked all day. You're really hungry, and you would go to this restaurant, and the waiter puts down a menu. So think about experiences that you've had at restaurants where you thought the menu was really good, and then think about experiences where you thought that the menu was really bad. So what made it good and what made it bad? I'm going to give everybody just a moment to think about that. Recall in your mind opportunities where you've experienced this. Good menu, bad menu. I certainly have a few in mind for myself. All right, so I'm just going to speculate here for all of you about what makes a good menu, what makes a bad menu. I'll start with bad. Sometimes I go to a restaurant that maybe specializes or caters in international cuisine, and I'll flip through it, and they've got salads, appetizers. Then I flip some more, and there's there's Thai food, and then there's pizza, and then there's burgers, and then there's kids food. That starts to make me feel overwhelmed. There's too many choices. I can't make up my mind, and then I'm flipping and I can't find what I like. I'm also a vegan, so then I've got to find the thing that fits with my dietary needs, and it's just too much. So what makes a good restaurant menu is simplicity, pictures on the menu, descriptions on the menu, and not an overwhelming amount of choices. And another thing I like to see on a menu is like a little star that says, like house specialty or chef's choice, because I'm really likely to try one of those things if it comes with a recommendation on it. So what if we could make learning, what if we could make activities that students do more like the good menu and less like the bad menu? So I like to provide opportunities for my students to have voice and choice about the products that they make and the ways that they can show what they have learned. All right. So in traditional education models, the way that you show what you learn is you take a test. So you read a book and then you answer questions at the end, multiple choice questions, written questions, that kind of stuff. That's outdated stuff. We can do so many different new and engaging, captivating activities where students can show what they have learned and demonstrate it in new ways. And the list that I have here are just a very small example of things that students could be doing. But whenever I give students a project or an activity, I like to give them 2 or 3 of these as options. So students can pick from those options, and then they have the creativity and they have the ownership about creating and using these as a way to demonstrate their knowledge. So here there's written products, presentation products, technological products, and media products. So I wouldn't show my students all of these because that would be the example of the bad menu. What I would do is I would pick 2 or 3, maybe 1 from each category, and then present those as ways that students can share their learning. And then they get to pick from those 3 or 4 options. So some things that I've discovered about this is I've learned about my students new things that I never would have imagined before. For example, I was teaching a course on artificial intelligence and virtual reality. And so these are students that are all pretty savvy when it comes to technology and video creation. And there was a student in Singapore who asked me if he could make a rap video about the content. And at the time, I didn't know that he's a miniature YouTube celebrity and he makes these rap videos. And so I said, yeah, that's great. I'd love to hear it. And so in the project, he made a rap video and it was phenomenal. And because I gave that student that option, that choice, they were able to demonstrate in their own unique way what they've learned. Now, one thing I do want to mention that's very important here is that we do have to maintain the rigor of our content. For example, if you are a language teacher or a writing teacher, reading teacher of any kind, and in our content standards, it says students must, make a written reflection or some kind of written thing, then we kind of do need to stay in the written product section. We can't grade student on a written subject and ask them to make a video about it, because then that would be reducing the rigor of the written artifact. So do pay attention to your standards and see where there's flexibility, like I mentioned earlier, and how we can have students use their own unique ways to show what they've learned. So I end up presenting to my students a menu. So it's not a food menu, but it's a product menu. So I'll say, for this project, well, you can make a poster, you can make a video, you can do a digital report or make a model, whatever it is. But I also do leave in a little bit of flexibility if students have an idea for something that I haven't listed. For example, the student that asked me about making the rap video, and that wasn't an option, but he asked about it. So that inspired me to leave that window open for any students who want to do something out of the box to share, something that they've learned or something that they've discovered, and they want to use that as a vehicle for what they have learned. So I think this is a powerful tool, making a menu. And this is just a small example of things that you could use. There are literally tons more. All right, so what I want to do now is kind of show you, I've talked to you about our pedagogical foundation and about flexibility and our values and our philosophy. So I just want to show you some examples about how do we put all of this into practice. We've got to practice what we preach, as we say. So I'm going to show you just a couple of examples of some of our curriculum and show you how we take our philosophy and our values and our foundation and put it into action. So this is an example of a project that's called Personal Web Page. And on the left-hand side here, this is an example of a personal web page that a student would make. And this is coded in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So students are going to learn digital skills along the way, and they're going to make their own personal web page. So it's kind of like students are going to share their interests, things that they like, but they're also going to learn web development along the way. But inside of this lesson, inside of this project, students are also going to be learning about digital citizenship. So we've got teacher and instructor materials about digital citizenship that go alongside this. So we've got this whole package that kind of comes together in our lessons. You know, where we're in the field of constructionism, we've got students who are building things. You know, in our philosophy, we believe that students should be able to share what they make, and it should be designed well. And we're also connecting it to real world problems and real world scenarios. So in this particular lesson, we're talking about digital citizenship. In other lessons, we may talk about other subjects such as video game design, content creation, or the way artificial intelligence is shaping our world. But all of our projects kind of have both of these elements to it, where there are learning materials as well as an artifact that students are going to build, design, and customize themselves using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Here's another one. This one is a project called Digital Citizenship Guide, where students in the lessons are going to learn about what it means to be a good digital citizen and what are some responsible uses of technology. How can we keep ourselves safe online? And then using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, they're going to design their own interactive digital citizenship guide. It's got a little pledge here, do's and don'ts of online communication. And so students are going to generate these themselves. This is just a template and an example. When they build the project, it'll just have an empty header, an empty body, and students will code and develop this on their own and work together in their classroom to develop what they think the best pledge is, what are the best rules for do's and don'ts of online communication, so that the ownership of this content is on the students. So it's not like us at BSD or you, the teacher, telling them what is the best way to conduct yourself online, but it's the students exploring and learning and coming up with their own unique statements. And with that, you know, it all connects back to our values about, you know, care and empathy and resilience. And this is just kind of a really nice way to bring it all together. So I did just want to kind of, you know, show you those two examples. You know, we have over 600 hours of curriculum on our platform that all follows a similar philosophy and similar project-based approach, where we're teaching kids to code alongside with learning new digital skills, and they're all based on real-world scenarios. If you do want to try some of our projects, we have some that are completely free and available for students or for you to check out on Hour of Code. So if you've never heard of Hour of Code, it's an initiative that started in the US. And basically the idea is to commit 1 hour of time to teach students how to code. And we've been a part of this movement for a few years now. And I can also share the link out directly for you to access Hour of Code. But if you want to dive deeper, you know, you want to see what our lessons and our content looks like, our library of information, our glossary, we have quizzes and tutorials that are all built into our product. If you're interested in this, we'd love to offer you a free trial offer for one of our projects. Well, there's 8 projects total. The course is called Code is Your Voice. And the purpose of Code is Your Voice is to show students that they can share what's most important about them, their own voice, through code. So this is a limited offer that we want you to use, you know, between now and the end of the school year or end of this year. And we'll share information about how to access that in the chat once I'm done presenting, and we share for Q&A. All right, but if you want to do this, here's the link, and Brent, who is working with us, will help you with any onboarding or any questions that you might have about that. So if that's something you're interested in, we'd love to have you sign up and try out. So here are the 8 projects. People Inspire Me is a project where students are sharing the people who are most important to them in their life, whether it's their family members or celebrities. And so each project is about an hour long or so, 45 minutes at the minimum. And you know, each one is a way for students to develop their skills in coding, but also as a way for them to develop their voice and show what they like and what they care about, what's important to them. Another project that's really great on here is called Support My Cause, in which students create an active campaign and they get supporters to sign up for it. where they can add their email address. And, as each person adds their email address, the number of supporters goes up, and they can launch, a campaign about anything that's important to them. And all of these first 4 projects are all aided with video guided lessons. The last 4 are self-paced projects where students are just focused on learning the syntax, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to increase their skill and their ability. I'm also going to share a link to the feedback for this particular webinar, and see what you think. And did it work for you? Was there something interesting, or is there something critical that you want to share with us? Thanks to you all. Thanks for joining. I hope that there has been something that you've gained from this presentation, but I want to leave just the last few minutes to see if anyone's got questions, comments, suggestions, thoughts, criticisms. So Beth, could you let me know if there were any questions that came up during the talk that I can address now?
Hey, Mark. So the first question that I see here from Richard Burkell is, I think the real challenge to address is how do we achieve that level of flexibility when you have a class of pupils with that kind of range of devices?
That's a great question. Yeah, so as I mentioned in my example, in my own practice, working with students who are all gathered around one mobile device, and then other students who've got 3 devices in their bedroom, what it first requires me to do is it requires me to get to know my students. So Stanford University did a big research project this past year, and they interviewed schools all over the world about how did online learning go for you? A lot of people were kind of just thrust into it, not knowing what to do, how to conduct online learning. So there were a lot of trial and errors. But in their research, they found out the one key, most important aspect of all, above everything else for online learning, is relationship building. So you've got to get to know the students, and you've got to get to know where they're at and what situation are they in. You've got to find out, are you at home with 3 siblings all sharing a laptop? Are you at home with a parent who also is working and there's no supervision? You've got to get to know each and every one of your students and find out their unique circumstances, so that then you can customize and tailor and provide flexibility for those students. So when you design lessons, you design a lesson that those 3 kids in India can all work together on one mobile device, but also that kid in Singapore can flex their strengths with their iPad, and they've got a green screen, and they're going to make a really cool video. But we're not going to compare apples to apples at the end, because we've designed for flexibility, we've designed for relationship building, and it takes a bit of work in the beginning, but it's key and it's valuable. I hope that answered your question, Richard. Beth, what else do we got?
We have something from Teen Willis. Thank you. There were lots of great ideas here. I would love to try out your free trial products. I'm new to ICT teaching, and we'll be teaching year 7 students in September. Did you have a question? Teen Willis?
Sorry, I might just want to speak, can I?
Yeah, please do.
Right, that's much more personal. Not a specific question. It's just I'm just grateful that you've been able to give me some really wonderful, eye-opening ideas. I love the way that you link the pedagogy to this, to how to teach ICT, because this is what would make my brain tick. I'm always trying to put myself in the position of the learners, how to really enthuse them into creating something awesome, and at the same, the teaching of how to create the awesome thing. That's the real actual learning, but you're kind of weaving it in without them noticing. I really like that. So I'm going to take some of your suggestions and put them into practice.
All right, fantastic, good. Yeah, and I think that this time of year is a good time to start thinking about these practices, and hopefully give you some inspiration for that. I'm gonna drop some links into the chat right now because I forgot I needed to do that. So let's see here. First, I'm dropping in a link to our Pedagogical Foundation curriculum development process that was certified by Digital Promise. Secondly, I've got the link to Hour of Code if you just want to see our coding projects only. If you're interested in our free trial, then I'm going to drop the link for the free trial. And then in order for us to continue to make these free webinars and make them useful to you, I'm also going to put a link to feedback. If you could just take a moment to fill that out, that'll help us provide good quality content going forward.